Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I would like to thank very much the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present about our work here. For me, it's very special because everything I'm going to talk to you about today started, as she said, exactly here. I was a student at St. John's College. So TReND in Africa stands for Teaching and Research in Natural Sciences for Development in Africa. And sorry, how do I pass the slides? Oh, there we go. So we are a non-profit organization, and we are entirely volunteer-run, and our broader goal is to promote sustainable development through investment in higher education and scientific innovation. And the way in which we do that is by empowering and supporting African scientists through research training, equipment donations, and do-it-yourself technology. And throughout the talk, I'm going to explain a bit better what I mean by each of these parts. But what we do is that after we empower scientists, they start to become part of what we call the TReND family. And once they are part of the TReND family, they give back into the system. So they start to participate fully into TReND activities, and therefore they help themselves, other African researchers, to do their research. Of course, they continue doing the research that they were doing before, but better equipped, but better equipped now. And additionally, they also go out into the public, into the schools, to tell people why science is so important. But before I start talking about each of these points that we do from TReND, I would like to tell you a little story about how everything started here. So everything started when I was a first-year PhD student, we could say, at the University of Cambridge, actually here in St. John's College, and I was being supervised by this wonderful man, Mike Bate, at the Department of Zoology in Cambridge, actually here. And as a first-year PhD student, and funded by a very generous grant from St. John's College, a travel grant, I got the opportunity to go to the United States, to Goods Hole. And there, I attended a very intensive course. It ran during 2 months. From 9 in the morning to midnight, we were in the lab learning new experiments, learning new techniques, learning how to ask good scientific questions. And we were only 20 students. And one of these 20 students, besides me, it was Sadiq Yusuf. Sadiq is a Nigerian scientist working in Uganda, and throughout this time, we started to share how he was doing neuroscience research in Uganda and in Nigeria, and how I was doing neuroscience research here in Cambridge. And the idea was kind of born here through many informal conversations. But at that time, I was just a first-year PhD student, so there was not much I could do. I just came back to Cambridge and got on with my PhD. And it was not until 2010, sorry, here it says 11, that's a typo, in 2010, when I was about to finish my PhD, that I contacted Sadiq because I thought, okay, now I think I'm equipped to go there and to teach Sadiq and his students all that I have learned here during my studies in Cambridge. So I told him, hey Sadiq, what do you think, through a Facebook message, what do you think if I go there and I organize a course like the one that we did in the States, but in Uganda? And he said, this is the best news I have heard in a long time, and from here we can do anything that is needed, but we just don't have much money and we don't have much equipment. So with these encouraging words, and because Cambridge is such an awesome place and there are so many supporting people and institutions, after a few months of bugging people around and with the super helpful advice of many people, but most prominently these 4, and thanks to the help of many institutions and donations from many laboratories, I set off to organize an insect neuroscience and Drosophila neurogenetics course in Uganda. And the idea, and this was the first TReND course, and the idea was to organize a 3 weeks intensive laboratory-based course to bring some equipment to the university that will stay behind there for students and researchers to keep using it. And the idea was to open the applications to all African scientists. I managed to raise fundings to provide 6 scholarships for 6 students to pay their travel and their accommodation in Ishaka for the 3 weeks. Of course, attending the course was completely free. There was no fee to attend. And this is something that TReND we have been loyal to. All of our courses are free of charge, and we always try to provide scholarships for students to attend. But at this point, I'm so sorry, this is an old version of the presentation. But at this point, some of you may be wondering why flies, although Daniel has answered a bit of it before, and I will talk more about this later. But the main reason at the time is that I did my PhD doing Drosophila neurogenetics, so at the time it was kind of the only thing I could teach about. But there are, so that was the original reason, but there are many, many good reasons that I will explain. And just as I was trying to figure out how I was going to do all of this by myself, there were these 4 brave individuals that they say, oh, we can go there and teach part of the course. Actually, Tom Baden ended up staying for the duration of the course. And that's how the 5 of us found ourselves in Ishaka, which is in Western Uganda. That's where the medical and scientific campus of Kampala International University, where Sadiq works, is located. And we had a very successful course. We had students from 6 different African countries. And throughout the course, the students were telling us how wonderful the experience was being, that when the next course was going to be, whether we could donate equipment to their home institution. So we decided that we needed to do this properly, that this couldn't end up here. And through many conversations in between Sadiq, Tom, and myself, we decided to fund a nonprofit organization, and we call it TReND in Africa. So that's how TReND got started. And so initially we were just 3 people in Uganda and in Europe, and that was in 2011. And now in 2015, this is how the TReND map looks like. We have activities in many countries over the continent, and we have volunteers basically all over the world. So what is exactly what we do? Excuse me. These are some of the activities we do, and I will talk to you about each of them, and I will start with research training, because that's how we started. So these are the research training courses that we have at the moment. And of course, all of these research training courses are only possible because they are always co-organized with African institutions. So we closely collaborate with each of the institutions. So you can see here is CIPE that Daniel was talking about, and with whom we are co-organizing the bioinformatics course. And these courses are only possible thanks to many scientists that they spare their time to come and to teach at these courses. Now, at this point, some of these courses might seem like really useful to you, like, for example, science communication. I think we can all agree that is quite useful. But some may be a little bit more cryptic as to why to study insect neurogenetics, or what is this of open labware, build your own lab equipment. So what I'm going to do now is to tell you a little bit of the things that we teach and why we teach about them, why we think that they are important. So first of all, I will start with insects. So Drosophila is a great tool, and there are many reasons, and one of them is genetic tools. So when we want to do biological research, if we want to understand the cause of disease and how to cure them, or if we want to understand why mosquitoes are biting humans and how, we need to understand how the biological system works. And for that, we need to be able to modify genes, we need to be able to understand their function. And at the moment, the best model organism that has the higher number of what we call genetic tools, that are the tools that allow us to make these genetic modifications, is Drosophila melanogaster. And although they look quite different from us, they actually have quite a bit of conservation with humans. So 70% of the human disease genes are conserved. But insects are useful to study not only for the things that make them similar to us, but because of the things that make them different. Because many insects are disease vectors, as you know. And in our courses, we teach, of course, about mosquitoes. And many of the mosquito research in the recent years, it has been accelerated thanks to the knowledge that we had acquired using Drosophila. Besides that, the community is very friendly, so we share reagents. The insects are easy to find and to maintain in the lab. And because it's so easy to do experiments with them, the standards of the science are really high. We demand very high controls in the community to every experiment. But we don't only teach about insects, which some people might be interested in, some people might not. We also, in general, teach about the latest technologies that might be useful if you are working in biological systems. And one of those is genome editing. As I said, we need to understand the function of different genes, and for that we need to be able to change them in the living organism. And genome editing technology is very important, but up to recent years, it was also very expensive, and many, many labs, even in Europe or in the States, they were not using it. But in the past couple of years, there was a breakthrough discovery that many of you might have heard of, is CRISPR-Cas9 system, and this has dropped down the time and the cost that it takes to do genome editing from several $1,000s to just $20. So that's why we think that this is very powerful, and this is something that it is just starting to catch up in Europe and in the States, and we want that it catch up in Africa just as fast. Beyond that, and this has been talked about before, but of course we also do bioinformatics training. So this is a paper that was published earlier this year by one of our TReND members in PLOS Computational Biology. Bioinformatics in Africa, the rise of Ghana. And the reason why bioinformatics is so exciting is because, as it has been mentioned before, there is a lot of data and tools that are available. And mainly what is needed is the expertise and to be able to ask the right questions. So there are a lot of genome sequencing projects nowadays, like, for example, this African Genome Variation Project, that they have all of this huge amount of data. They publish they analyze a small bit of it and they publish it, but all of the rest of the genomic data is out there freely available. And if you have the right questions and the right expertise, then you can make real breakthrough discoveries. And computers can also be low cost. So for example, Raspberry Pis, oops, I'm messing up these buttons all the time. Raspberry Pi is it's a computer for 25 pounds. It was developed here in Cambridge, and we are making a very heavy use of them. So what else do we teach about? We also teach about open labware, or in other hands, how to build your own lab equipment. And what do I mean by that? Lab equipment is really expensive, and we try to develop designs to make lab equipment cheap, and that you can make it yourself. And this is just one example. This is a microscope that in total it costs 20 euros. And what can we do with it? Well, it requires some 3D printing that I will talk about it afterwards. And with this, you can visualize parasites, like in the blood, or you can do blood smear, but these are relatively simple things to do. But this microscope can be even more powerful. We can do experiments like calcium imaging that, for those who don't know, is a rather complex and hard to do experiment, and we can do it with a 20-euro microscope. But of course, we are not the only ones doing these designs, doing this open labware, as we call it. There are a lot of designs out there, and we also teach about them in our schools. So for example, there is this open electrophysiology amplifier. For those of you who don't know, an electrophysiology amplifier is a very expensive piece of equipment. It costs several $1,000s usually, and we use it to understand, to see what is the function of our neurons or of our muscles. And our students during the course, they build their own electrophysiology amplifier, and then they take it back home with them. And actually, we have a student who had as a scientific publication using the electrophysiology amplifier that he built in our schools. As I told you before, another technology that is coming fast and strong is 3D printing. So 3D printing allows you to print anything that you want on 3D. So what you see here is a jaw that a student printed during one of our schools. It can be used for teaching, but this is relatively simple. But one can print more complex things like that microscope that I showed you before, or like a micropipette. And excuse me. So we have organized this 3D printing workshop in which students from 7 African countries came down to Ethiopia. They built their own 3D printers, and then they brought them back to the host institution. They know how to build it, so they know how to fix it if it breaks. And they are now printing things that normally will cost a lot of money or that they maybe couldn't be able to get in their home countries. So now they just print it and use it to do their science. And just to let you know, this is not something that we are excited and because we think is good in low resource environments. Open Labware and 3D printing is hitting really hard. So this is a paper that we published also earlier this year in PLOS Biology, and we had almost 40,000 views in just a few months. So everyone worldwide is very excited about this. But we always want to do things as local as we can. That's why all of our courses always run in African countries and in African institutions. And now I'm really excited because we have partnered up with these guys in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. They have a company, and they are building 3D printers out of e-waste. So it's recycled, and it is local. So what else do you want? Furthermore, these are the old slides, sorry, I'm not going to talk about that. So just to sum up on our research training, we work on, so we teach about our latest technologies. Our courses are always hands-on intensive. They are always co-organized. Oh, thank you so much. They are always co-organized by African scientists. They are pan-African, so our schools, they happen in Africa, but we always get researchers from all over Africa to come together so that they can interact and they can form collaborations that will last when they go back to the home institutions. And furthermore, because they are going back to their home institution, they are carrying with them the knowledge that we gave them. We also promote do-it-yourself spirit, that now I guess you get an idea what I am talking about, and problem-solving skills. And the instructors are always experts in their field. They might have never been to Africa, though. And this is great because this promotes collaborations in between scientists across continents. And we have some very successful examples of this. And then we, of course, always do follow-up courses. So we don't just support our scientists during the course, but we try to support them throughout their career. But this is not the only thing we do, courses. We also have a skill transfer program. So what this means is that African universities that want to be our partners, they fill in a questionnaire that we have that looks more or less like that, and they say what type of expertise would they like to have. So maybe they would like to become better at molecular biology. So they can request an expertise, they can request an expert, and for how long do they want him or her, and for how long do they want them to go, and whether they want to teach undergrads or grad students or help with particular research projects. And on the other hand, we have volunteers that have a complementary online questionnaire in which they say what is their expertise and how much time they are willing to devote to go and teach at an African university. And this is working really, really well. We have finishing PhD students, postdocs that are finishing. We have PIs, group leaders, that they are on a sabbatical or that they want to dedicate 1 month of their time to go down to an African institution and teach, and we match the need for expertise with the expertise that we can find. But of course, sometimes expertise is not enough because sometimes the equipment is just not there, and that's why this program always comes together with an equipment donation program. We have shipped over 2 tons of equipment, and we only send equipment where either we know the expertise is there or where we can provide it through our skills transfer program. And normally we do it with second-hand equipment, but sometimes it's new equipment that we get donated from companies. Also, we have good agreements for consumables because some biology can be expensive in terms of consumables, so we also donate those as part of the program. And the shipment sometimes is paid by the host institution and sometimes is paid by us, and that depends on a case-by-case basis. So just as an example, you can see here me and Marie packing up a confocal microscope that was afterwards sent to Nairobi, to ISIPE, and here you can see some scientists at ISIPE working on it. I have been told that it's probably the first confocal microscope in Nairobi, but I'm not sure about this, in Kenya. Dan is telling me that it is. So we're very happy about it. And with this, I just come to the latest of the projects. But for me, I have to say that it's the project that I am most proud of, and it's the outreach program. Through this program, the alumni of our TReND schools, they have organized themselves, and they go out into the public, they go to schools, and they teach students what they've learned at our schools. So here you have Yunusa, for example, and he's showing a secondary school student how to measure his muscle activity by using one of these electrophysiology amplifiers that he had assembled during the course that he attended at TReND. And the reason why I like this project so much is because it's entirely African-led. And we have now outreach projects in a number of countries, and these are the people that are leading those projects. And I love it because it really shows how, by educating people, by empowering people at the higher level, that is at the PhD and master level, that information naturally goes down the chain and can produce a massive change that comes from within. And with this, I would just like to finish up by talking about our ongoing links with the University of Cambridge. So everything started here, and it continues here. So one of the TReND co-directors is Jelena Alexis, and she's here at Cambridge. We have been throughout being supported by Cambridge Africa, and we cannot be grateful enough for this. And we have collaborations with another NGO that was born here in Cambridge as well, that is called Cambridge Development Initiative. And of course, there are many researchers from Cambridge that they have come and they have volunteered at our TReND schools. And I think I would like to especially mention Jimena Bernie and Matthias Landgraf, because they are still actively engaged in collaborations with scientists that they met at our schools. And also Isabel Palacios, who afterwards has gone on to set up her own initiative called Ross Africa. We have participated in a number of workshops and won a number of prizes in these workshops. And we are also now collaborating with, starting to collaborate with Pietro Cicuta, that he is from the physics department in Cambridge. And he's the director of a school in Trieste that is devoted as well for scientists of developing countries. So I have been talking for quite a while, and of course it is not me, the only one doing this. This is what we call the TReND family. Oops. These are the people doing the research, doing all of this work, making all of this happen. I would also like to thank our sponsors that have been giving us money to make all of these projects possible. And with that, I would just like to thank you for your attention, and I would like to take any questions.
Thank you, Lucia. That was really fantastically exciting, and lots of energy gone into that. And if you look at that list of all the people sponsoring, the amount of work to get that to come off is amazing. So, questions for Lucia? And Mike at the back, I think, somewhere. Questions? Yeah, one on the back row there.
Thank you for the presentation. Phenomenal job. Well done. Just a quick question. When you donate lab equipment, how do you follow up on maintenance? Because I know that maintenance can be a major challenge in Africa.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And we are quite young, and we encounter challenges, and we try to resolve them. And obviously, this is one of them. So far, for a lot of the equipment, the maintenance, we were doing it through the skills transfer program. So we were trying to get people, like if there is a problem, we try to get people that are skillful and that might be able to repair it, to go down to the university and teach a course, and at the same time kind of try to fix the problems. These guys that I talk about that make the recycled 3D printers, they are super good at electronics. So actually we have just partnered up with them as well so that they can maintain the equipment that we have in Tanzania. So at the moment we don't have a solution, but we try to find solutions here and there. But we had at some point a project. Let me just say that we are a volunteer-run organization, and sometimes we have projects and it takes some time to make them happen. But we had a project to start a school of technical education on maintenance on scientific equipment in Africa to be able to provide this kind of expertise, but that is not happening yet.
Just wait. Any more questions? Yeah, please. We need a mic down the front, please. Come on.
Thank you. That was indeed a very, very inspiring talk. And coming from the humanities perspective, I was wondering whether you can see an organisation like this teaching research for more humanities and social sciences happening as well.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the reason why this is science is because I'm a scientist. So at some point we have had some lawyers contacting us saying, oh, this that thing that you're doing is very interesting. Can I, do you have something for me? Can I go and help in Africa? And although this is not what we do, if we get a request like that, because we have so many contacts with so many universities in the continent, then we have put them together with the universities and then through the department that has worked out. But I think if there will be someone willing to start a TReND humanitarian, like humanities in Africa, I will be really happy to support it and to help in any way that that we can. I think it will be
Well,
great.
here's my new job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia.
Thank you.
Thank you.